sure that we're aligning not only new workers that are coming into the field, but people that need to be retrained because they've lost their more traditional jobs. So the question I'd like to pose to our panel is, what are some of the things that you see in your own work that are kind of creative solutions to ensuring that we are doing the right job training for the right jobs going forward? And, you know, to your point, Eric, you mentioned that you place folks in jobs that have benefits and career path. That's a big difference from some of our own, the old ways of job placement, which was just get them in a job and hope they stay there for 6 months and then they'll rotate out and we'll get them another job. So we need to think differently about it. So I would love to just say, who's got some creative strategies or what some of the best practices that you see are going on? Anybody want to start? And I'm going to ask you to keep your responses brief, because we want to make sure we get through our 3 planned questions and then turn the rest over to the audience. Emma?
So I can think of 3. First, funded by the economic stimulus dollars. So it's true. We've been workforce development, like most social services, has been experiencing federal and state cuts consistently every year for the past 10 years. So we're operating on shoestring budgets. The economic stimulus was a huge boon to workforce development, in that we got an influx of money that was to be used to do some job training and to give, just kind of infuse the system with a little bit more money to meet the increased demand of unemployed people walking through the doors of community-based centers looking for help to get a job. So, but one of the creative things I think being done is around health information technology. So, one of the other things that the economic stimulus package did was it kind of prioritized and funded a pretty significant shift to electronic medical records keeping. And what that did was, for the health industry, all of a sudden they started seeing that there was going to be a huge demand for people who could operate these systems, who could work with electronic records, and essentially do health IT. And so we invested as much economic stimulus money as we could for health IT into health IT training programs. Those jobs, it doesn't look like they're going to be very high-paying jobs initially. They tend to be entry-level at this point. But there's certainly in hospitals, and it does seem like there could be some career paths around those. We'll see. Chicago Career Tech, you mentioned, is the mayor's program. Laura described it beautifully to get kind of middle-income or middle-class workers who've lost their jobs retrained in IT skills. But the third creative thing I see happening is, you know, I talked a little bit about this initiative, Chicago Leads, giving birth to a data and a research center at the University of Chicago. We call that organization, or that research center, Quick Stats. So we're quick, they're Quick Stats. And Quick Stats, one of the big requests that we are getting a lot is, where are the jobs of the future, right? Like, what is the demand? There's no hiring going on. What should we be preparing people for? And traditionally, you would find that out by just kind of going online and checking out the most recent labor market information on, you know, the LMI source for the state of Illinois. But the truth is that we recognize that data is it's like 2 steps behind where we are today, and there is a need for us to start gathering labor market information from a variety of sources. And then, once we had all of these sources kind of corroborated, then we needed to call and validate with local employers about whether what we were seeing on paper was actually happening on the ground. And so Quick Stats, for the first time, has already started pulling together this information so that we have a little bit more real-time labor market information, that our projections are based on numerous sources of data that's then validated by real employers in Chicago, so that when we come out and say, you know, we think the jobs are going to be in IT, but specifically in these certain 2 occupations, that we can relatively confident about that, whereas we haven't been based on kind of the traditional sources of labor market information. So those are the creative things I think are best.
I think the stats thing, bad data, bad programs, right? Bad planning. If you don't have the data, so that's great to hear. I think Eric, you had something to add on that?
Yes. Really quickly, one of our key funders is in the audience here, and they support one of our community centers. I forgot to mention that we have a fabulous community center down at 48th and Cottage Grove. And Liz Chicago is our major funder of that community center, so just make sure we're clear on that one. We also have another community center down at Woodlawn, attracting individuals who are seeking jobs at the University of Chicago and elsewhere. It was interesting for us about 5, 6, 7 years ago. We were able, in large part, to place individuals who went through our screening and our training and place them in a permanent job with benefits at a major employer. Wow, how that has changed over the past few years. And what we have discovered is that we need some intermediate steps that need to occur before someone is able to ultimately be placed in a permanent job with benefits. So whereas in the early 2000s we wouldn't necessarily consider part-time or seasonal work, we are more than willing to consider that now as a stepping stone before someone can get that permanent job. But we also make sure that we continue to provide that comprehensive support so that we don't just drop someone and they're stuck in a seasonal job. One of the things that we find very effective are transitional jobs. You're hearing a lot of conversation about transitional jobs, and that's one of the reasons why we started Clean Slate. The number of individuals who are staying with us over a very long period of time, and we guarantee individuals a permanent job with benefits. As a matter of fact, there was a woman I met yesterday. She's been with us for 2 years as a Clean Slate intern making minimum wage, but this transitional job is giving her the work experience, it's giving her enough income, not to live, she's not self-sufficient, but to get by, to barely get by. But I think we need to start really looking at transitional jobs, so long as they're coupled with that intensive support and that ultimately lead to that permanent job with benefits.
Great, thank you. And, I know Ann has a comment here. I also want to say, because as we talk about the scarce resource issue, it's really important that we are collaborating. So what are the ideas that you have as far as creative solutions to training the workforce for future jobs in collaboration with other organizations?
Well, funny you should ask that question. So I'm going to nominate a strategy that's called bridge programs, and probably most experienced practitioner of that strategy in town is Instituto del Progreso Latino, and they started in the manufacturing industry. But I think what's promising about this, let me just explain that the idea behind the bridge program is if you are an adult with low basic skills, you have literacy or numeracy problems, if you go to many vocational training programs, career skills training programs, you're not going to get in because you don't have the basic skills to be successful. So what happens to that adult? He or she has to go and sit in some form of remedial education, and we all know, and I think Eric's program shows it, that people have to have some sort of job goal as motivation. And if you cut them off for that, you're pretty much cutting them off for progress. So what a bridge program does is combine the remedial education with the vocational training as a first step. So that if you're going to remediate your math, you're going to do it, let's just say, in a healthcare context or a manufacturing context. Same thing with your literacy. And this really provides a bridge from where that individual is into good, high-quality vocational training. So this is a strategy that Instituto pioneered. It's now operating in manufacturing and healthcare and a few other industries. And what's really, I think, most important from a collaboration point of view is employers are very involved because you have to know that you're taking those relatively scarce training hours and putting them exactly where they're needed for that individual